Hi everyone, it's the Spark Potential team. We're here today to talk about a very fun topic that I think almost all of us have encountered. If you are in a social environment at work, meaning that there are more than one or two people that you work with on a day-to-day basis, you have probably encountered what we term as shit stirrers, the people who intentionally will cause trauma by going around a conversation or a difficult conversation with another person that they work with in order to escalate to a manager to deal with said problem.
Yeah, so I've got some stories I can share just from experience.
So many stories.
But give some examples. So as a leader, manager, I had a person who vehemently was disagreeing with a celebration we were doing for a couple that was getting married, and she didn't agree with their lifestyle. And so she was escalating to anyone who would listen, basically how she disagreed that the company was allowing us to have a optional bridal shower for this couple. A second situation I've run into is two people were at lunch having a conversation, and it was about politics. Somebody overheard the conversation, escalated it to HR, and complained that we should have a policy where people are not allowed to talk about politics at work. And so we had to have a discussion about that. Or one of my personal favorites and personal experiences you might have had is you're doing your best to do your job, and somehow, some way, you might have a conflict with a person that you're working with. Maybe you inadvertently, like I did, answer a question that really was, I guess, in their lane, not your lane, but they weren't in the room and you were just helping out answering the question to a leader or whoever was, inquiring. Or maybe it's just a person who doesn't like the way you're approaching something. Whatever those situations are, this person's escalating around you. They're not bringing the topic to you. In fact, it might go through several chains, and they're stirring the pot, right?
Yeah.
When those shit stirrers happen, there's some things you can do. My advice is, if you're in that conversation where you're put in that spot, hey, this person brought to my attention something and they never brought it to you, say that. I would love if they would approach me directly with that problem, and I could have probably addressed it right then and there, and it wouldn't have been a problem.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep. Vocalize. I want to be the first one you talk to if you have a problem with me.
Exactly. Second thing you can do is don't take it personally, and honestly, it's something on their side, not on your side. You don't need to change what you did or how you behaved. Their behavior actually is the thing that's causing the conflict, so don't take that on to yourself.
Yeah, from a psychological standpoint, judgment always comes from an internal place of fear. So there is an underlying fear and or insecurity that individual is feeling with regard to that situation. And so it is not your place and not your, you really just don't need to take on the responsibility of their judgment and their emotions.
Absolutely. And third, if it's becoming an ongoing problem, I think at that point, that's a good conversation to have with that person. If you feel comfortable, confront them and say, hey, when you behave this way and when you're saying these things, this is how it's making me feel. I'm not asking you to be my friend. I'm not asking you to like me, but we have to be professional at work, and you need to keep a professional environment at work.
Yeah, articulate the boundary. Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Set those boundaries and hold them accountable to that. If they're not then held accountable to that boundary, that's when you can escalate it to your leadership.
Absolutely. But do not perpetuate the cycle of escalation by doing that escalation before you have that conversation. Because again, you want to make sure that you are leading by example.
You're not the shit stirrer.
You're not the shit stirrer. Don't be the shit stirrer.
Don't be the shit stirrer. That's our advice for today. And if you find yourself saying, hey, maybe I've been the shit stirrer sometimes, the best thing we can advise you is think about what is triggering you or what is making you feel so needing to vocalize that objection or whatever in that moment. What are other things you could do? Could you just go talk to the person? Or could you just maybe even keep that to yourself?
Yeah. And where's that judgment coming from? Where is that perception coming from? And does that perception play into the workplace? So again, I think in some of those examples, I think you talked about lifestyle preferences, you talked a little bit about political preferences, and then even working style preferences. Out of those three, working style preferences is the only one that really fits in the boundary of the workplace. And any of those others are free speech, free choice, right? And so it is not your place to dictate that to another person. So how do you find your peace and your scope so that you can be happy? If you're hearing a conversation that you are uncomfortable with at an unpaid lunch, right? Walk away from that conversation.
Yes.
If it's something dangerous, like truly vitally dangerous, of course you have an obligation, right? Somebody's talking about bringing in a weapon to the organization, whatever. Yeah, report that. That's a different situation. But pretty much anything aside from that is going to be something you can walk away from. And if it's something about a lifestyle, right? That's not your choice. That's okay. Then don't go to those things. Don't support it. But be fully aware that is going to be reciprocated, right? So again, you're in a social environment and the actions that you take have counteractions. And so remember that as you are building that work wellness for yourself.
Absolutely. So again, our advice, when you get into these situations, don't be the shit stir.
Don't be the shit stir.
And if you've been shit stirred, I guess, if that's a word, take a breath, don't take it personal, and work on setting those boundaries with those folks.
Absolutely. We hope that this helps you to improve your everyday work wellness, and we hope that you like and follow this channel and subscribe to www.sparkmypotential.com. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, and work well.